So Vincent, do you think we have too much immigration in the UK?
I think the bigger question is, what is too much immigration? It's more about, do we have enough housing? Do we have enough space? And et cetera, et cetera. Because I don't think you can have too much. For example, if we need more nurses, or if we need more train riders, or if we need more just simple cleaners, or, whatever, there's no a set amount of that. It's more like, is there opportunities for this? So I don't really believe having too much immigration. It's more about creating a better infrastructure or a better system to take care of everybody. What do you think?
No, I think quite often, when we say immigrants and in media and in social media as well, we're kind of just going to one community of refugees, and those are the immigrants of the country. And then everyone's going, oh, that's too much, that, we've got a lot of them coming in boats and things. But actually, if you look at, we're also encouraging a lot of immigration to the country. So in that sense, we're saying that actually there's not enough really, because there's skill shortages within our country, and that's why we need it.
Yeah, so I can quickly say about myself, because I would consider myself as an expat, I'm a German and British national. So in terms of, do I think immigration is good or not? Because I myself is part of this system. So I can't say to myself, I'm not good. I always think of other people or me in terms of, are we always looking out for our own interests? Or do we say, come on, we have people to look after as well?
As for me, I have a British father and a Trinidadian mother. My mum migrated from Trinidad to live in the United Kingdom to start a life for herself and a family, which consists of me and my sister. She came because she read about the English countryside in Thomas Hardy novels like Tess of the D'Urberville, and she wanted to live around England because of that beautiful countryside in the novels. And my uncle had a choice between Canada, New York, and England, and he chose England because also of its scenery. So, yeah, I think in a lot of cases, unless if they sort of take advantage of things like, kind of the privileges we allow, that immigrants are treated just like any one of us, really.
From a legal perspective, the issues facing immigration in the UK are that it's become such a political hot potato. There's a lot of back and forth. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've had 4 primary pieces of immigration. In the past, you'd normally have a decade between primary pieces of immigration. So we've also had an awful lot of immigration changes to the rules. And that means that it's very difficult to advise clients on being able to plan when the rules keep changing. A case in point here would be, we're expecting the immigration rules to change yet again, and this change is going to be retrospective and affect people who are already on routes that would be eligible for settlement, and their eligibility for that settlement is going to fundamentally change. So the goalposts are being changed on people when they've already started a route. That doesn't help certainty. That doesn't help being able to advise people.
I really like what you said about that, there's created a conflict. Somewhere people are moving because out of survival or, whatever their reason is. And you have to look, what's happening that these people have to move. I believe the reason that we can live in safety, that we have all these things in Britain, is because somebody else has to, pay for it, either cheaper labor or minerals or et cetera, et cetera. So we have to look, why are these people, not only that, there's people coming in and we have too many immigrants or et cetera, but why is that happening? And then see from that perspective, because, I think this topic is more deeper than just having this many.
I think if we think about like why people come to the UK, right? So there's and there's only certain countries that I feel like people really talk about immigration as a problem. So you talk about the UK, you talk about Canada, you talk about America, you talk about Australia. These are all English-speaking countries. So it's universally, if you want to move and if you need to move, it's easier to settle in and it's easy to go in. So forget the immigration, the benefits that we get, forget all of that. It's an English-speaking country. We can kind of go there and settle down there. And then you kind of then look at kind of that push-pull factor. So I studied geography in GCSE, and you learn that whole push and pull side. So really, when we talk about, let's say we moving to UAE or something, people are often looking at that immigration as pull factors. You're coming for less taxes, you're coming for a better life or better weather. But then when we talk about immigration here, it becomes all about that push factor. We're saying, oh, you know, they're being sent from war zones and stuff, but we don't really focus on that. We're just kind of saying, oh, they're just flooding society. But it's like, why are they flooding society? No one's going to want to leave their like beautiful cultured food, beautiful sunshine, tropical weather, just to come here with grey skies and thinking there's Paddington Bear walking around. Like it's not the case. You know?
And I think we were talking before. You said that you haven't met a lot of Tanzanians.
Yeah, you're my
and exactly, and that's one of the biggest thing in Tanzania. We've been very, very, very peaceful, and like I said, nobody is gonna leave their country if they have everything and all of the opportunities they need in order to grow, prosper, or feed their family or whatever. And the reason why you have a lot of, people, refugees coming from Somalia or coming from Eritrea and etc. is because, Congo, because there's a lot of things happening there. And that is mainly, like if you look at every device, your mobile, your literally everything needs this different kind of resources from rare earth resources from it. And how do we live in this prosperous life? It means that this place, we're benefiting from this. These wars are making prices cheaper. Conflicts makes things cheaper. It's not going to care a lot about people, but it makes, so I think we have to kind of see also the responsibility, what we have. We cannot just, go around and have TikToks, mobile and everything. We need to question, where does this come from? Why are these people moving? And the reason you don't see many Tanzanians is because we have been a very peaceful country. We never had any internal war. And one of the biggest reasons that is that our first president went, we're not going to work with any international people. We're going to work within Tanzania. But you see every other African country which has let their borders open, you see what happened. So it's a very, very, very deep conversation. And now we come to, a generation, like you said, of course, like how, I'm part of that system too, even though I don't know when you came.
25 years ago.
25 years ago, you see?
Yeah.
Well, I think the main drivers for immigration to the UK are that the UK it's free, it's stable, it has, unlike America, it still has the rule of law, it has a language that is the most internationally spoken language in the world, it has a fairly stable economy, if you keep Liz Truss out of it, you have fantastic schools, fantastic universities. If you want to start a business, geopolitically, it's in a very good place. Between America and Europe, it's a very exciting place to start a business. It's a place where lots of people come to join their families. These are the kind of things that are pulling people to the UK. And those are pull factors. I'm not talking about the push factors from wherever else they've come from, but those are very attractive pull factors.
Britishify, like probably westernized in a way, I think like a British person, obviously, but I have my German roots as well. Like I've got my favorite food and things like that. But currently what we see in the news is an exodus of British people going to different countries. So because maybe due to the economy right now, so it's not the best place in the world. Like you say, there's a lot of different places to go. But you were mentioning about housing, like free housing and that.
Free housing, free healthcare. So yeah, no. One thing that we've discovered.
Free housing and free healthcare? What? Where?
Not free
Can I
housing.
say
rent? Technically, it's more so specifically free healthcare, because basically the common thing that binds us all together, regardless of what country we're from, is essentials. So food, water, education, healthcare especially, to kind of preserve the health of the elderly, and also to kind of nurture the sick and heal the injured. So I wanted to sort of bring it all to the fore, like, you know, what are your opinion on like healthcare and its effect on immigrants?
Well, I think with free healthcare, for example, we've been giving free flu jab, COVID jabs, and things like that. But normally, my personal choice is to go with private healthcare, because I think nowadays I cannot trust. I don't know what's going on with the NHS, so possibly I wouldn't use it, even though I'm entitled to. So
I think the thing is though, right? Like, so it depends how we want to treat the people who come to this country. And it's also kind of, then you look at kind of how you want to be treated if you go to another country, if you're moving to a different country. So if the nationals are getting that treatment, then that's within our infrastructure as a country, and that kind of should be extended to whoever who lives here. But, well, that's why I think anyway. So some countries, so I grew up in Singapore, you know, that's private healthcare to its core. And in that sense, so if you go there, you're not expecting you to get something back. You're kind of saying, okay, well, I'll need to save up enough to have it. You know, I think in America it costs like £6,000 to have a child, or call 3,000 to call an ambulance or something. So no one's expecting that when they go to America. What they do expect when they go to America is kind of the opportunity for the American dream, the opportunity to work, to have multiple jobs. And that's what they think the benefit of that is. So it's kind of based on your infrastructure. I don't think anyone's coming here to steal our NHS or, you know, be part of the waiting list. I think they are coming here, though, is saying, well, that's part of the infrastructure, so I'll work with the infrastructure. I think there's definitely sometimes abuse of that, but who's to say that the British nationals don't abuse that either? I think that's interesting. But I think everyone has different views, right? You could have a view of a nationalist view of, okay, we want to protect our country first. You could have more of a globalized view of, actually, this is a global issue that there's some people having to escape and having to find safety. And if we think about it globally, then you can kind of distribute immigration in a different way. That's kind of what
And I think also, like, we shouldn't separate when we're, you know, helping human beings to heal, or medicine or whatever, between, you know, nationals or immigrants, or you know, if you, you know, fall down and break a leg, you should be a right for you to be able to,
especially if that's what we're doing here. Especially if, you know, if it's kind of the privilege you get by being born in a certain place. I think you talked about, you know, you said I'm an expat, right? And sometimes I walk around and I'm like, oh, well, I'm an immigrant. And it's kind of interesting how that word is used. You know, we were saying earlier, depending on the passport that you have or the area that you come from, you kind of, society has labeled you differently. If I was to move to Dubai, I'll be an expat in Dubai. If someone from Spain is to move from here, they'll be considered an immigrant. Someone from India comes here, becomes an immigrant. So legally, that's not any different. But in media and society, we kind of say, oh, we're welcoming the expats. We're going to have these visa route options available for the expats. They're the immigrants too. Like, it's the same thing. It's really interesting how that's been so embedded in that there's a difference. And it's a difference how we view ourselves as well, you know.
Exactly.
No, 100%. But I do agree that, you know, you should have, you know, some kind of control, like documenting things. I do agree on that 100%. Like, it's a country, it has its own sovereignty, it has its own rules, it has its own culture. And you just need to be documented and be able to integrate into the society. That's definitely. So that's why I said the problem is not migration or immigrants. The problem is the system, which is current right now, is not updated to what's happening around the world right now. We work on that. I think this can be, maybe we cannot solve it, but we can come much closer to not having people, taking advantage of their healthcare or taking advantage of this and this and this.
We do have different treatments for British citizens and for immigrants for housing, benefits, and various other public services, and to some degree, understandably so. If you're British, you get to have access to the NHS, you get free education, and you can, if you meet the certain limits, the requirements, you can have access to social housing, social benefits. If you are a migrant, on the other hand, and you come here lawfully, you are normally subject to the no recourse to public funds. So you don't get access to social benefits, social housing. In fact, almost all immigration routes that lead to settlement require that the applicant will have to pay an immigration health surcharge, which is £1,035. It's less for students. I think it's about £776 for students. But it is a payment that they have to make up front when they pay the visa application fee in order that they can then access the NHS. And it's a payment they make whether they access the NHS or not. So they're treated differently. Their children do have free access to education, as is common throughout the Western world and North America. When it comes to asylum seekers not only don't have the right to work at all, certainly not while their case is outstanding or for the first 12 months while their case is outstanding, they also don't have any recourse to public funds. They can, if they can show that they're destitute, get access to a very small amount of money. I think it's less than £50 a week, or have some accommodation rights.
When I look out and I see people, when I have a kebab or when I want to have a meal and etc., I see most of people are from different nationals, and I don't see that as a bad thing. Most British families want their kids to not be cleaners, or they don't want their kids to be, they want them to be lawyer, doctor, or etc. So saying that migration is not a good thing, who's going to do the cleaning? Who's going to do the taxi driver? Because you're raising up your kid to become a doctor, but and
society needs to function.
Society needs to function, but people don't talk about that. It's just we're taking our jobs, but and it's so funny. I was talking to a lot of my friends from after we graduated uni still don't have a job. I have a few friends who are also who are British actually, who are in universal credit, and the thing is, it's so funny because they get a lot of job proposals, but they're like, man, I studied, marketing when I, how come, they want me to work as a Amazon driver for, so it's a little bit about that. They don't talk about that. You just talk about people taking jobs, but you need to see, how, if you look deeper, I see that you have something in your mind.
Yes. So as you were talking, I kind of had the thought that in some ways, different parts of the country celebrate masses of immigration. Like if you think Chinatown in London with people from the Asian continent and China and other parts, and then even Luton near where I live, where there's a lot of Indian, Pakistani people who are kind of finding their own sort of home around there, and it's becoming so populated with those people that you could almost consider that they've found a cultural part of the country which they can make their own, especially when you look in takeaways or taxis. So that's one of the bits where we've managed to make immigration almost welcome. So yeah, that was kind of what I had in mind to support your point about how when you meet people, even in a taxi, you just see multiple international people.
I think you made a good point about kind of the policies and the governance that we do, because you're right. If we have open borders, it's going to cause more chaos of anything. So even the people who are coming here with open borders is going to be a bit stuck because there'll be a bottleneck in our systems. There'll be a bottleneck in kind of the paperwork's getting through. So we need to think more like a business of actually where's the gaps, what do we need filling, and be more strategic with it, rather than like one answer fits all of like, let's open it all or let's close it all. Actually, there's a medium there of, okay, let's phase it for this. So maybe it is that we need, these skill shortages that we have. Maybe it's the fact that we want to increase heritage and culture in some area of the country, So there's methods to do that.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like if you open everything, there's going to be more chaos for the people moving here in the first place because we're not creating a safe environment and we're not onboarding it well. So if you go to a new job, if you don't onboard that people, the employees that's coming in, and then we risk doing that.
Yeah.
And then what happens is kind of they go into their own shell, they go into their own area of the country, and then that becomes a whole thing again of like, oh, they've not been integrated. It's because we've not done that integration part really well, and we don't have the infrastructure to do that at the moment. So we do need to fix the governance.
That's actually a thing. Actually, what I was saying earlier with like different cultures, even though they've been integrated in that way, there's not really been much mixing around with like national people. So in a way, it's almost like they're living in a different part of their country, even though they aren't. So that is a place.
I'd argue on that though. Like, whose responsibility is it? Because I'm saying I think it's our collective responsibility to kind of integrate them. I guess that's when the issue becomes, right? People talk about integration quite a bit as a negative.
I'd say it's a mix. Like it's partly us to kind of introduce ourselves, but it's also on them as well, like to kind of, put themselves out there, maybe say, hey, how you doing? What's your name?
Well, I'll be honest, I did the Life in the UK test, and I think I know more about the UK through that test than the actual British
Exactly, I've done it as well.
So actually, so I'm like, is that really integration?
And I think also when somebody steps into your home, it's very important also to show a welcoming.
There we go.
Because you don't know the language, you don't know the culture. So yes, the responsibility is that the person who is getting invited needs to be feel that they are willing to be welcomed into your home, of course. But I do think the person going to your home, the homeowner, needs to make the first step to say, welcome, this is our values, this is the rules of the house, this is what we do, we, eat at this time, we da-da-da-da-da. But it's also a responsibility that the guest doesn't become, I don't want to do this. Then,
do you think one of the things is like
it goes both ways?
Do you think we know our rules of the game? Like, because that's really interesting. Like your household, when we have dinner and you know kind of the things. But I think collectively, I feel like there's been lost of that, or like different parts of the country have their guide, like how they do things. Like I feel like there's a London way of doing things, and then some people argue there's like a South London way of doing things, or like a North London way. I think collectively in the UK, we think we know, and in the media, we're like, this is how we do things, but do we really? And then,
I think, I'm going to tell a little story. So every time there's Christmas, right? I'm normally just alone because my whole family lives in Tanzania, right? And I'm here on my own. And my friend, Divine, who is actually, English. He's from St. Preston, somewhere in the countryside. And he said, Vincent, and he went to New Year's me, come celebrate, because I told him, he's like, what are you doing for New Year's? Are you going back to Tanzania or what are you? I say, yeah, it's too expensive for me to go back. I said, what are you doing on every Christmas? He said to me, I told him, this is just a normal day for me, He said, come over. So I went to celebrate my first English Christmas last year in St. Preston, and it was. I had my first roast dinner. I didn't even know what. It's so funny how multicultural London is that I never even. I just hear people talking about. So I had the stuffing. It had
the black pudding.
Yeah,
No, not a fan.
It's like a cake with like stuff. Yeah. But
Christmas cake.
But it was really so. Talking about,
So that's our culture.
So nice, Vincent is fully integrated.
Indeed, yes.
I think there is a widespread fear of immigration for a number of reasons. It starts with a bit of truth, and that sort of fact merges into fiction along the way. So, for example, after COVID, we had a huge spike in immigration for a number of reasons. All the students coming back, we had a huge need for care workers. We had the Ukraine scheme kicking off. We also had the British National Overseas for the Hong Kong people, which has just been extended, but that came into being round about then. And business started again. So, we had an awful lot of factors, some of which were one-off, that kicked off just after that bit. And it's called the Boris Wave because he was very enthusiastic about it because he wanted to achieve growth. That happened, fantastic. But in sort of 22, 23, we got to levels of immigration of the 900,000, getting close to 1 million, that were very clearly unsustainable. I think that was a genuine concern. That's not sustainable. That figure has plummeted since then. The net immigration figure till June 25, I think, was 204,000 people. It's not at those record levels. If you read the Daily Mirror, the Daily Express, GB News, you would think we are still under this horrific tidal wave, this flood of immigration, and that our culture is being swamped and that none of us are going to be speaking English tomorrow. It's complete rubbish. But there was a genuine fear a couple of years ago that immigration was too high, and that is no longer the case.
When I went to the north and Geordie land, I was doing my Geordie accent. So I was doing like all the proper stuff and eating like orange chips. Is that the point where you say someone's integrated? Is that it's not a test? Is that what it means to be integrated? But on the other hand, let's look at immigration policy. Right now, for example, someone from Hong Kong who comes here need to have B2 English, a higher grade than university level of English, a test. And also, for example, if someone from China comes here to get a job and live here, they need about 47K in salary, pound. Wow. So you see, the bar is set higher for immigrants to become legal than actual British national. So do you say, is there fairness in this all?
This is why you cannot compare. Let's say you're applying for marketing job, and I am from India, and I am applying a marketing job, and I'm in London. You see, like the competition, like what you have to do to come from India to here is way more than if you're a national over here, and that creates, unfortunately, of capitalism. Creates that you're going to hire that Indian guy because, like you said, you have to do this, you have to do this. So that means the people coming here are like the top of the top, on the top. And now you're applying. So we have to solve that also. How do we then, the way we apply, maybe they should set certain, percentages of British people to be in every position of the jobs because, you cannot compete. One is, brought out in a very, most likely in a very nice and a safe, place. One person needs, 50,000 pounds. So you cannot joke around when you come over here. You are here on business, So I think that also can be system needs to be made like a job. You need to have this for a percentage of people needs to be British, and percentage of this can be skilled worker because that way. You can make it a little bit more easier in the system. And this comes back then when I see these hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating. But who's the one deciding to hire these people? The business owner, the very rich, right? They're hiring, the best because they know if you're, a person from Sri Lanka or India or in Nigeria or whatever is going to take his job really serious because it's an opportunity. We have to sponsor him. He's not going to complain about overworking, whatever it is. He can feed his family back home. This is the big thing. So, and then seeing then this big rallies and you have Elon Musk on there, punching on for this far right thingy. And I'm like, but it is him who's hiring all of this. Because he doesn't go and say, hey, let's hire, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That it needs to be a system to be able to balance this because that competition is creating that division.
I think I see an alternate side to it though, like I've been in hiring processes as well. So you say like, I don't think many know that there's that many barriers actually to come in, because you asked the question, is it fair? And I think it depends on the needs, if you think of a country as a business, right? Because I don't think many people know that there's that many barriers of entry to come in, that you need to save that much. And everyone's just saying, oh, you're just coming in really easily, but it's not that easy. And I've seen it in self, right? I have a very, I'm of Asian heritage, but I have a very white name. And, I get through recruitment process way quicker than someone who doesn't. And I've seen it, I've been in rooms where you get a pile and you see someone from Indian nationality or someone from elsewhere, and that name is just taken off the pile. So whilst we are hiring to an extent, I think there is still that biasness and there's still that immediate, forget the experience. I'm not willing to sponsor, I can't do this, I can't do that. And that the names just go. If you've got a weird name, your name's just out of the pile immediately. And I've been in rooms when that's happened and I've had to challenge it, have to challenge my own thinking as well. And then I kind of look back and say, oh, I've got a bit of a white name. It helps me in a lot of things. It's quite stark, really. But I think, not many people know that there is that barrier. I think many people think it's just very easy to come in. But actually, no, we are, as a country, setting standards. And perhaps that's what we need to do now. I talked about the phasing. So we phase it. So let's say now this is what we need to do. And then further on, when there's kind of further humanitarian issues, that we can open up a bit more for different reasons. I think there's always different reasons for immigration. There's not just a coming in for working wise.
The UK did have a system for capping immigration, or at least for capping the largest business route for immigration, which was what is now called skilled worker, which used to be called Tier 2. And we had a cap for several years. And it turned out to be a bit of a sort of albatross around the coalition government and then the Conservative government, because the point about a cap is there were various exceptions. If you were a high earner earning over £150,000, or if you were intra-company transfer, it didn't affect you. But the point about caps is either the cap isn't met, in which case it's pointless, or worse, it is met, in which case UK businesses aren't getting the people they need. And when you think about it, most businesses find it difficult to work out who they're going to need, what they're going to need in any year. How on earth could any government work that out for the whole country? It's preposterous. It's never going to work. So what governments should be doing, of course, is ensuring an environment where businesses can grow, not commanding who they can have and when they can have them.